I was so taken aback. I couldn't believe what I was seeing.
My virgin eyes! Watching such pornography on
HBO
screen.
has crossed the line.
Dragonclaw, wing and scale. Come now, let's examine a tale of the greatest beast ever considered. Another episode of Big Flying Lizards.
Man, I really don't even know what we're going to talk about in this episode. It's a sad notable first, which I'm sure you're aware of.
Do tell.
A notable lack in this episode, an omission. An actor who has been present in every piece of media we've covered up to this point. Like, in the absence of certified hot boy Matt Smith, like, I reckon about 20% of this show so far has been Daemon defending. What are we even doing here?
Here I thought you were going to say Patty Considine. Welcome to Big Flying Lizards, a dragon movie and television podcast. I am one of your hosts, Bryce Wilson. Joined across from here is one of my dearest and longest having friends, Austin Snyder.
What up?
We both will be missing our certified, not lover boy, but certified bad boy, Matt Smith, Daemon Targaryen.
See episode 3, I believe.
What?
See episode 3 for our discussion there.
Oh, yes. Great conversation. I have to agree with what you were saying. Like, there's so much to cover in this episode. I don't even know what areas we want to focus in on because we got a good one here.
Right. That was sarcasm up top if that didn't read. We are let's get this shit out of the way because we gotta move today. We are re-entering the studio of the apartment of the dragon.
Yes.
The even smaller council is in session. There. Yeah, that one. And we are covering House of the Dragon, Season 1, Episode 9, The Green Council.
Boo!
Listen. I'm having this is a great episode.
It's a great episode, but boo! Team Black Baby!
Yeah. If you can't sense something of a divide growing, not just in the show, but in the podcast, I think it's going to get a little overt here in that this episode seems to cover, quote unquote, Team Green's response to Viserys, the king's passing.
Yes.
And next episode, we're going to be covering how all of your favorites, your people respond to this great tragedy.
Some would say the better team.
Some would.
Actually, I would be willing to bet that most would, but that's a conversation for another day.
Yeah, I guess it depends on if you see this show as a tragedy or what else. Well, it's a tragedy.
It's a dark comedy. That's what it is.
By no stretch. Listen, I'm so tired of people saying Succession is a comedy because that show is funny. That show is not a comedy first.
Sopranos is a comedy.
Sopranos is super funny. Sopranos, I actually would entertain that argument, but House of the Dragon, Game of Thrones, not here for the comedy.
It's not funny.
Especially with a lack of one Tyrion Lannister.
And the thing is, he loses his touch after season 4.
Is it him or is it the writing?
I mean, it's not Peter Dinklage. I'll say that.
No.
So,
I mean, who's the funniest character in the show? House of the Dragon.
Oh, well, in House of the Dragon,
I think there's a lack there. I think there's a hole for some noted comedian to come and fill. We don't even have
Daemon,
like a Tormund.
Daemon is pretty funny.
Daemon can be funny.
Like, he's not the class clown, but he is funny.
Daemon, I find funny talking about what he's up to with you. He's never really laugh out loud funny in the show, other than the line at the wedding. I'm positively bereft. That's the only time he's actually gotten me in the. We got to get going. I'm sorry, that's on me.
No. I do want to make emphasis. Like most of the time, you do mention that the first shot and the last shot are very important. And this episode, I don't think we've seen something more deliberate than what they did with the very first shot, where it's the empty throne room of the Iron Throne at night.
And it looked so metal, dude.
It looks so good. Like, that looks like Dracula's throne. Like, I know we've made comparisons to Dracula's castle, but right there, you'd almost expect a group of D&D adventurers to walk in expecting to fight the big bad vampire, and it's empty.
No kidding. And it's followed by a series of pretty powerful images, I'd say. It's a really strong sequence to start the episode. And not just is it like strong composition, like good shadows and all that, but it is nearly monochromatic. It is almost black and white status, which is something that, yes, this is a rewatch series, but I didn't even lock into this on purpose. That's something we've commented on throughout this first season, is the desaturation of the color palette. From the very first episode, where that's like the most colorful, vibrant we've ever seen Westeros depicted.
Yes.
To open like this in this episode, we are in dire straits.
Things aren't looking good.
No.
And like, I know that they're trying to show the empty castle as more like when I was first watching it, even like this last time, I was thinking like, oh, like this is a sign like Viserys is gone. The castle is empty, like showing like the soul is gone essentially. But then you do get the sense like, no, it's more like, because you see the boy moving around and at first like, what is he all about? What's going on here? But then you see all the other servants and you're like, oh, this is just the very first servants waking up in the morning and getting their chores done. Like,
well, to me, it read like the night crew.
Well, yeah, I don't know. I think it's the end of the shift of the night crew though, but you don't see anybody moving back and forth.
Yeah. Yeah, it's just dead.
As dead as Viserys.
Right, so obviously the king is dead.
Yes.
And the show starts with a small servant boy discovering this fact and then going and reporting that to
Talia.
Her. Yeah.
I also do, like, again, we have so much to talk about, but the song that's going on, particularly the piano, I was loving. Like,
this is the strongest music score-wise episode so far, hands down.
Like, it was very much spoilers for a Game of Thrones. Spoilers for a Game of Thrones. In episode 9 of season 6, when Cersei blows up,
I thought of the exact same thing, but I think they do it better here.
They do, but it's that same, like, it's the same tone in the music. It's like very similar.
It's the isolated piano.
Yes.
And eventually they do bring in some strings, which is.
But the piano is the part that I'm like, it's just so good. Like,
yes.
Again, giving that haunted feel to it. Everybody is like, it is. Everyone is going ahead and realizing what's going on. But Talia is told by the servant boy, and Talia, we assume, tells Alicent, who in turn tells Otto.
Yeah.
And
which is one of my favorite aspects of this episode, which I think is totally masterful. I'm going to be gushing. So if you're not ready for that, then maybe just turn around real quick. But to, like, as an audience member, track that info, like that little bit of intel as each character gets it, which is the most critical, like, juicy piece of intel to drop in decades.
And with the exclusion of Talia, we don't really see them. Like, we see what happens if Alicent receives the news. Like, she's like, are you sure? But you don't actually, nobody actually is delivering the news. Viserys is dead. Like, it's like.
Yeah, I don't think that is, well, no, I think there is at least one instance where a character says that the king is dead. But it's more. It
happens twice, I believe. It happens in the small council, which we'll get to in a moment, and then at the coronation, it happens. But those are the two instances that I'm recalling.
But you have a point, though, that everybody the episode kind of dances around it, or the characters do.
Yes. And
So are we getting into the small council meeting already?
not quite yet. I do want to just make quick note when Alicent says to Otto that Viserys said that he wanted Aegon to be king. Like, even like nobody believes this in the show. And again, I feel for Alicent. Like, this is probably the one episode where I feel for adult Alicent. Like, I feel for her the most. Like, I truly do not have that any ill will or like any negative feelings towards, like I've expressed in this episode. Like, I genuinely feel for her. And the one time nobody is believing her is when she's being 100% honest. But even Otto like has a look of like, I don't believe what you're saying right now.
Yeah, but that's the tricky thing is like when he hears that, I'm sure he's like, oh, we're on the same page now.
Yes.
Like, this was always the plan.
Yes.
But she actually believes that is the reality of it, even though it's not. But we as the audience can understand how she got there. And I think that's pretty critical in setting up this whole green versus black dynamic that the show is gunning for, which I think is kind of fun.
Yes. And then one last instance, and I know we're going to talk more about it, but Tyla, she marks a particular some candlesticks in a window.
Huh?
Yeah.
What's that about?
I don't know. It seems pretty late to be lighting some candlesticks.
Well, listen, it was already revealed at the end of last episode that she is an informant for the White Wyrm.
Yes.
So I'm sure that's what's going on there.
I wouldn't look too much into it.
Yeah, we'll get there.
But we get to, again, I love the small council meetings. This small council meeting might be one of my favorite small council meetings.
And I'm sure that contributing to that is how much orb footage we get.
We got so much orb footage. And, it's so fitting that Tyland Lannister has a gold orb.
And that he's so lackadaisical about it. Like, they roll it across the table. Like, okay, let's get this started. Listen, you're not going to catch us treating our orbs so carelessly. Bryce is stroking his.
Dark Neptune.
Indeed. But then they get started. I actually like how they do that to start like the roll. Although I guess is everyone aware at this point that the king is dead? Or
I think the only people that know are those at the head of the table. Maybe Sir Westerling at that point, but that would be Otto, Alicent, and Sir Cristen Cole.
Okay. But still, it does show kind of a laxness in certain characters where there's this emergency small council meeting called, the king isn't attending small council meetings, but an emergency early morning small council meeting calls, and they're just like, yawn, okay, let's go.
In their defense, though, they've had several emergency small council meetings. Like, they had an emergency small council meeting when Daemon stole the egg. They had an emergency small council meeting. I know they had another one before. I just am blanking on what it is. But you could, like, yes, it's early, but they're like, okay, what is it? What's going on? And then
the bomb drops.
And they are told that the king is dead. Excuse me. And Alicent reveals that Viserys wished Aegon to be named king with his dying breath.
To which Tylan responds, then we may proceed now with the full assurance of his blessing on our long-laid plans.
What? I've been telling you this. Team Green has been planning to usurp the throne the entire time.
Listen. Team Green's really coming together toward the end of this episode. We'll get there. Otto, a snake, is thus revealed to have been plotting with the majority of the small council to proceed as if Aegon was Viserys' claimed heir regardless, which is super shady.
I also just want to bask a little bit in the fact that there's a few things where you alluded that I might be right about something, but there's no way to confirm. But Otto confirms not all my theories, obviously, but he confirms in this episode that he manipulated Alicent to be married to the king, which can show a little bit of validity to some of my crackpot theories.
Yeah, I mean, the crux of it's still his supposed alliance with the Maesters, which I'm not seeing definitive evidence of just yet.
Okay. Well, back to the episode. This was one of my favorite episodes with adult Alicent. Just how she I shouldn't say favorite because it's just I had a lot of positive feelings toward her. But even when she was like, and I'm not saying that she wasn't acting, but when she's like, you guys were planning to usurp Rhaenyra, like, really, you had no idea? Like,
I still think she's weirdly an optimist.
But
in that regard. But also I think that is a big thing that comes out in this episode is that she realizes who her father is.
Yes. Not only who her father is, but she's starting to play the game.
She's been playing the game.
She's been doing the test run. She hasn't been playing the game.
Now she's in the game within the game, which is the real game, as we all know.
She was, yes.
In this scene, not Emily Carey, that's the child, Olivia Cook. She looks like frazzled too, yes. Which Alicent, the queen, it's all relative. She looks pristine in most instances in this show. So yes. I think that's notable that there's like a little frizz in her hair, like a little more bags under her eyes. She's not having a great day.
Well, and again, we see it more throughout the episode, but we know that she genuinely loved Viserys. Like, she genuinely cared for him. They may not have had the spark or the level of closeness that they had maybe in episode 2, but they still were close.
No, later in the episode, she says that she loved her husband, and I believe her.
Yeah, I don't think Alicent really tells that many lies. Like...
Anyway, Alicent seems to be the one who's most torn up about this revelation on the council, shortly followed by...
I think there's someone who's a little bit more moved by the news.
Good old Beesbury.
Good old... And, like, I watched the behind the scenes, and I actually really liked the direction, because it seemed like this was a choice on their part to make the guy who's sort of like a not a doddering fool, but just somebody who rambles, and we've seen him just go off, be the one who's like, no, this is like, I know Viserys. Viserys would have never done this. Like,
yeah, and he takes a stand.
Yes,
which, I mean, maybe that's the fool leading to his end, like his foolish nature.
Yes.
Maybe that's him failing to read the room a little bit, but he does an honorable thing in that he stands against everybody else in the chamber and is like, no, like this is a farce.
Yeah, and even though he may have not been included on this plan to usurp Rhaenyra, I'm sure he had inklings of it. I'm sure there were whispers around him. So I know that he was, and again, I'm not saying that he knew, but I'm just more emphasizing on your point that he knew he was in a den of vipers.
Mm-hmm.
And he was still willing to stand up for Viserys, which he knew Viserys wanted Rhaenyra to take the throne.
But then Cristen Cole
needs to lay off the trend. Like,
that's exactly it. I do think that Cristen Cole is post episode 5 been a little less interesting of a character. But I do still see a progression from the last few episodes to this one, where just the like abrupt eruption of violence where he kills Beesbury with the orb.
Yeah.
Dude, orb kill.
Never do that to me, baby, please. I trust you. Oh, and
It's a progression of darkness within the character. So I like to see that they're still doing something there. I think that Cole's going to have a role to play in the show as it goes forward.
Yes.
What do you got?
No, I agree. And I think it's just the level of anger and hatred that he has for Rhaenyra. He hasn't let any of that go. In fact, he's letting it fester and boil. And you could even make the argument that he might be even more angry that he sees Alicent is willing to forgive Rhaenyra, where he's not. Like, I know we don't really see any sort of interaction that makes an emphasis to that, but Alicent all throughout this episode is defending Rhaenyra, which is big.
Mm-hmm.
It's
well, she's sticking to because that's an interesting or notable thing about this episode is I think this is the only episode that doesn't have any time jump. Like, this is mere hours after the last episode.
You could make an argument for episode 4 to 5 because
it's still longer, though.
Yeah, well, we don't know. We don't necessarily know because at the end of episode 4, Viserys is like, you are going to marry Laenor Velaryon. And then they go to Driftmark to get that.
Okay. In this case,
I get what your point is.
All I'm trying to say here is that she is operating in the same like headspace that she was at the end of last episode, where she had just made up with Rhaenyra.
Yes.
Like, she had also just gotten a giant bomb from Viserys because she thinks that he's saying that Aegon needs to be the king. But right before that, she like buried the hatchet.
Yes.
So I think that is critical to, and that's also kind of the tragedy of this, that Viserys's attempt for them to reconcile is probably what creates a bloodier conflict, yes. But we don't have time to get into all of that.
Not yet.
Before we get too far from Cole, in this scene, and indeed this episode, I think it's revealed that he seems unmotivated by his honor anymore. You said I think that it's shown in this episode that his devotion to Alicent and his hate for Rhaenyra are now his primary motivators, which is a real tragedy given the character that we were introduced to earlier in the show, who was so compelled by his honor. Like when the shit went down with him and Rhaenyra, he was just so devastated over it because that was the most important thing to him. Well, he seems to have lost that.
Well, I think that's hitting the nail right on the head because I don't think he has honor anymore. He lost it. Like, he gave his honor to Rhaenyra and Rhaenyra tossed it aside. Like, he wanted to get married.
Blame the woman.
I am... He went to Hustlers University, Austin. This is what he's gonna do. This is what's going on in his head.
You're right. He got burned. Also, he's making decisions.
Yes, but I do really think that the reason he's not motivated by his honor, and again, I'm not defending it, is more that he thinks he doesn't have honor anymore because he gave his honor to Rhaenyra, and that's why he wanted to marry, because he even said in that episode, I've lost my honor. My honor, like, I need to find a way to get my honor back. So I do think that there's a lot that you're bringing up there, that he is being motivated by his hate, his anger, and just a drive for vengeance.
Totally.
But,
okay, what else in this scene?
It's so Otto, and again, it's sort of metal at the same time. It's so grim and it's so, but the Grand Maester is like, let's remove Beesbury, and Otto is like, we are not for leaving him there.
Closed meeting.
Closed meeting. And so they're all sitting. The best part is I didn't even see Tyland jump out of his chair, and we just see him casually go back into his seat after.
Yeah. And I think it's just like like him and Jason? Jason, the other Lannister?
Yes, Jason's the older.
Yeah. Like I also kind of look at Tyland as a bit of a goof. I think it's just
It wasn't until this episode, but I agree, because up and before, he's the one who was always like, my king, we need to be worried about this. My king, we need to be. But I feel like we get the sense that he knows that he's in the pocket. Like, he's on Team Green. He doesn't have to be all uppity up. Like,
okay.
It's just facts.
So what do they decide on this scene?
Well, Otto says that they need to arrest and kill Rhaenyra. Like, that's...
Yeah, and Alicent is hardline against that.
Correct.
Notable.
Correct. And I also want to bring up this last thing because, again, I love this character. We don't get enough of his screen. I understand. We probably get the right amount of it, but I do love his character. But we see Sir Westerling resign. Like, he removes his white cloak because, well, Otto tells him to go to Dragonstone, and he removes his cloak and he says, I serve the king. I don't serve anybody else, and I won't serve anyone until we have a new king. And to me, I think there was more than just that. I think he's been seeing how Criston Cole has been getting away with dishonoring himself. He killed Joffrey. He just killed Lord Beesbury. He's seeing that, like, I genuinely think he knows that Viserys did not want Aegon to be king. He's seeing...
He sees through it.
Yeah, he sees through it, but he's not also going to go out like Beesbury. He's going to do the honorable thing, and I think he decides to resign with honor.
I think you're right. I think that he's been onto it for a while. You've pointed it out before that often when Otto's on his bullshit, they will cut to Sir Westerling.
Yes.
And I mean, he's usually pretty stoic, but you can read into that, especially with the reoccurring cuts there, that he sees through it.
He sees through it, and he's not a fan of it.
No. And I just think it's so badass, especially after the way that Beesbury went out. Because that's setting a precedent that's like, no, you side with us or you die. And Sir Westerling is just such a badass that he's like
like, who's
no,
gonna do
I'm
it?
out. And also, no, you're not going to kill me because I'm the head of the King's Guard and like 6'6". So
yeah, I mean, like, even Cole refuses to look at him as Sir Westerling walks out. But is there anything else that you want to cover necessarily with one of my favorite small council meetings?
It's great. We got to keep going.
Got to keep going. We cut to Helaena with her children.
Yeah. Wait, her children?
Those are her children.
I did not realize that. They're very blonde, very cute, but those are hers.
Those are hers, those are hers. One of them is a boy, which is important because Aemond is not heir to the throne.
Yeah. So that's to say that they belong to Helaena and Aegon.
Yes, but there's another conspiracy that
Is it time for it?
it's not as big, it's not as fun, it's not as flashy, but how often do we see Helaena and Aegon together or even alone together?
Oh, well, everything that we've heard Aegon say about Helaena has been indicated that he's not too keen on the arrangement and not a big fan of her in general.
Who have we seen in the show that has the opposite feeling, and we actually see them in shots where they're either alone together or he's walking out of the room?
I have no idea who you're talking about.
Aemond.
He did say he would perform his duty.
He did say he would perform his duty.
Episode 7, check the tape.
I'm not as convinced as I am with my other conspiracy theory, but I am willing to entertain that those children are actually Aemond's children. Again,
we'll see. We'll bear it in mind.
We'll keep it in mind.
Perhaps.
But it right now it would like that's again. I don't know. It's not that big of a deal. But it also sort of makes sense because we see that the children are there. We know that they are heirs, but Aemond says that he is next in line, which if he knows those children are his, he can say, hey, I'm technically next in line. These 2 children are my bastards. Becomes king. He legitimizes the bastards.
Okay. Interesting take, worth bearing in mind in the future. I am still waiting for evidence to convince me he's not asexual.
Fair enough. However,
Helaena mutters another little under her breath prophecy where she says, "It is our fate, I think, to crave always what is given to another. If one possesses a thing, the other will take it away." Which isn't at all how she sounds, but I was having fun there.
they're like, that's nice, dear.
And I'm just like, has no one clued into this yet?
No,
Like, just no one takes her serious, but we as the audience realize that she's just like dropping all of these prophecies.
Austin, I want to paint you a picture real quick.
They all come true.
I want to paint you a picture. You have sisters that are younger. Some of them are like still childish and say some things that could be perceived as ridiculous, correct?
What?
You have children.
Okay, so yeah, I have sisters who are adults, and I do have sisters that are like young.
The young children.
Okay.
The young children. They're and kids do this all the time. They just say all sorts of random stuff. And
They do.
What if they were predicting things that were going on? You wouldn't know that they would be predicting things that were going on.
But how old is she now?
She's been predicting things though ever since she was little.
It makes me think that she's not aware of it.
She's not.
So why is she compelled to say it? Like, what does she think's going on?
It's Tourette's. I don't know.
Gee, one day somebody's gonna clue into that, and that's gonna be a great benefit to Team Black, Green, Red, whoever.
Now, this is jumping ahead a little bit, but when Alicent comes in and is talking to Helaena, she's trying to explain, and right when she says something, she reacts and says the same thing that she said in the last episode, that the beasts are below, the beasts are beneath the boards.
There is a beast beneath the boards.
Yes. And to me, that says that it's involuntary because she starts saying that and like she starts freaking out and almost having some sort of mental episode.
Okay, yeah, I could see that.
So like, again, if we saw somebody that was having some sort of episode and they were saying stuff, I don't think the first thing that they're going to do is like, let's see. All right. A tower's going to hit, the plane is going to hit a tower.
Yeah, and it is vague enough. Like, it's not like she's explicitly coming out and being like, there's going to be a big dragon that bursts out from underneath the what's that building called?
The dragon pit.
There's going to be a big dragon that bursts out of the dragon pit and kills like 500 innocent bystanders.
So why would you say that? Like, what would even bring up that in the imagination?
I'm just saying the cryptic nature of her prophecies is adding an extra barrier there. But she says that one again, and it's going to come true in this episode. Watch out.
Yeah.
So Alicent asks, "Where's Aemond?" Aemond 2, her son. Aegon.
Yes.
This show, man.
These guys.
Yeah, it's like they're trying to make it hard for like us, people who want to talk about the show.
Erryk and Arryk.
Can we talk about Erryk and Arryk? What the hell is that, George?
And we know that he did that on purpose. We know he did that on purpose.
But then it's the show rubbing it in, because it is two different actors, but they look identical.
They're twins.
Are they?
I'm pretty sure they're twins.
They might as well be. That would just feel kind of weird if they like kept going with the twin.
Well, the part that's especially infuriating to me is they changed the name of Theon's sister in A Game of Thrones. I'm blanking on it right now.
You want me to look it up?
That'd be great. If
okay. You vamp.
They call her Yara in A Game of Thrones. the TV show. And again, I'm blanking on the books. I need to reread them for the 7th time so I can get it down. But they change it because it's too similar to the Wildling lady. And they don't want people to get confused. They didn't want people to get confused in the show.
Okay, sorry. Everything on the Game of Thrones wiki is under Yara, so I'm trying to get what the actual
Try A
book
Song of
name.
Ice and Fire.
Okay.
Because that's technically what the series is called. So the showrunners know that they have the green light to change names. See, yeah.
Asha?
Yes, Asha.
Okay.
And like,
But nope, none of it.
Nope.
Listen, I get it, and I can imagine that being a fun little in joke with the production. It does make things a little difficult on our end, to the point where like Erryk and Erryk have a pretty notable split in this episode.
Yes.
Like, and there's a story there. I didn't know who was who. I legitimately had to look it up after the fact and be like, okay, it is Erryk who ends up leaving.
yes. But Erryk is also the one who was assigned to Aegon.
Yes.
Because that's what's brought up in the next scene. Because
Sorry, Erryk or Erryk?
Erryk. Erryk was not assigned to Aegon.
I feel like
Erryk was-
we're just feeding into this. The audience is like, you're saying the same thing. Our listeners.
Team Black and Team Green. Team Black was assigned to Aegon.
Yeah, but we can't say Black Erryk. Can we say, okay,
Mr. E.
E and A?
Mr. E and Mr. A. Sir E and Sir A.
But then it sounds like it sounds like you're saying mystery, or you're saying Mr. A.
George, what are you doing?
Oh no! The set's falling apart!
This is
What have you done?
This is all your fault, George.
Okay, right. Got that situated. So nobody knows where Aegon is.
Nobody. And Otto sends Ser Erryk,
Mr. E.
Mr. E, Sir E,
E.
E, yes, sends E to go look for him. And he specifically says that he is not to turn Aegon into anyone, including the Queen, except to Otto.
Yeah. Which shows that he has already earned his loyalty. Otto has earned E's loyalty.
I don't know if it's necessarily that or because right now, Otto is the king. He is as Hand of the King. He is king in all but name, because
Interesting.
the king's hand that's their role. If again, spoilers for a Game of Thrones, the Ned Stark was named King Regent when he was Hand. Now I know that Robert Baratheon wanted Ned to be the King Regent until Joffrey came of age, but one can assume that as the role of the King's Hand, they are the acting king until the post has been filled.
Interesting. Okay. That's good to know, because he was making some bold moves this episode.
Yes.
Which it wouldn't surprise me if he was overreaching a little regardless.
He's been overreaching his entire time.
Yeah.
He literally convinced the king through manipulation to marry his daughter. But there is a notable person in the castle still. It seems like most of Team Black has left the castle, but there is one member of Team Black that still is in the castle.
Rhaenys.
Rhaenys is, and she's locked in.
Yeah. Yeah. And she's not happy about it.
No, she is not. And she sees that everybody in the castle is being sent to the dungeon. Like that, she looks out the window and she sees like all the servants are being sent down into the dungeon.
Yeah.
I view that, and again, I think we get a little confirmation, but that's, again, just to control the narrative of what's going on. They do not want any news of the king's death to get out of the castle.
Yeah. Yeah. And that's critical with Rhaenys because she has a dragon.
Yes.
She can get a message out quick. Lickety-split.
She can get out fast. And Alicent then begs Cole. Well, sorry, not to jump, but like Alicent is concerned about Aegon, but also is trying to figure out where the future king is. And she asks Sir Cristen Cole to go look for him. And
so Otto has now dispatched Mr. A and Mr. E.
Well, he sends Mr. E, and I think Mr. E brings Mr. A.
He tells him to.
Oh, he does?
He tells him to take his brother.
Okay, never mind. You're right.
But he has dispatched that pair and like expressed that they need to be discreet.
Yes.
Alicent enlists Cole, who then Aemond sort of volunteers to be a part of that one.
Not gonna lie, Alicent has the better team.
No kidding.
Like, I will take Cole and Aemond over Mr. A and Mr. E.
And as they're searching, we can backtrack in a second if you need.
No.
But as they're searching, they do they find some common ground in that they recognize that they both know what it is to toil for what others are freely given. Which makes me think, like, not only is this a dangerous pair on Team Green, but I could see them developing a bit of a relationship into the future.
Well,
like they seem to kind of get each other.
Well, not only that, Cole, I think, views Aemond as his protege. Like, the first time we see Cole and Aemond after the time jump, they're training together.
Yeah.
Like, so we already established that they have probably spent hours and hours together because Aemond is trying to become the greatest,
the best who ever was,
the best that ever was. Like Cole was the best that ever was.
Yeah, and it's in that same scene where it's established that Aemond seems to be the only character we're aware of in the land who is on Cole's level.
Yes,
in with the sword. And
something that's very different from a lot of knights in the area or just lords and princelings is he doesn't fucking care about 20s.
Mm-hmm.
He is preparing to kill for killing's sake. Like,
yeah.
But they also, I think it also just shows how broken this family is. Like, I know I'm biased. I'm Team Black. But you have to at least admit, Team Black, Rhaenyra's children all seem to be close and have a fondness and love for each other. I don't think the only two that seem to care for each other sibling-wise is Aemond and Helaena. Like, they both seem to despise and hate.
Yeah, you're not going to get any pushback from me on that one because Rhaenyra's kids are golden boys in everything but hair color. And everyone, the best of Alicent's children are really weird.
Yes.
And that's what I really love that they've split up these final two episodes where you have the greens and the blacks essentially. But that is what's going on in this episode. Is it's a super toxic like family with all of this unresolved conflict that is having, like, yes, they are all kind of on the same page with the coup that is a go, but within that there's conflict. Like there's kind of like a little mini civil war going on in this episode within the Greens, and certain characters are going to come out on top and some are going to sort of be put in their place.
But I also think what they're doing is they're trying to paint a picture of what monster they're about to create. Like, the monster already is there. Aegon, like, we can both agree, Aegon is a complete menace. and they're about to make one of the most despicable characters in the show the most powerful person in the land.
Yeah. Oh, and they had such a good out in this episode, and they didn't take it.
They didn't.
Multiple people had outs.
Yes.
A little frustrating.
Yes. So Cole and Aemond go to the brothel that Aemond and the Street of Silks.
Yeah. And then they find out that Aegon doesn't really hang around there anymore.
Hasn't for years.
Nah, he's moved on to the harder shit.
He goes to places where they're less discriminating, as they put it.
Right, but isn't it Arryk and Erryk that get there first?
No. Arryk and Erryk, like, we don't really see. They get to the places that are less discriminating first, but we don't really see Cole and Aemond get there.
Yeah. But what you're talking about, Arryk and Erryk, they go to the place that she speaks of.
Yes.
And we see kids duking it out, and it's a little cross the line. Like, I enjoyed that little scuffle that happened in episode, what was that, 6?
Yeah. This is the next level.
No, this is and that was, that was just for funsies. But this one, they talk about, like, it's underground child fighting.
Yes.
Where they file the nails in the teeth. Vicious, just the bleakest shit you can imagine.
And they openly say that Aegon Aegon has a child that participates in it right now. And Erryk alludes that he's probably had several that participate in it.
Oh, no, yeah. And you have to wonder if that's part of it for him. But, geez, like, we don't know the true depths of his darkness just yet.
Again, yes, I agree. And I think what relates to that a little bit, and they say it in the behind the scenes, that Aegon, just like Daemon, is desperate for Viserys' approval. Like, that's really all he wanted. But unlike Daemon, Aegon never got that. He never, and like I don't even want to say in Aegon's defense, because Aegon is horrible, but Viserys never visibly gave Aegon any approval, but I'm willing to say for good reason.
Yeah, you have to give a little to get it.
Like, it'd be one thing if he was just a misbehaving child, but he's legitimately like a sex pest and like selling his bastard children into slavery, essentially.
I am not a book reader on this. I have a feeling that he is going to pretty soon be way too far gone. I feel like that's where this character is heading, but I will say in this episode, it's pretty tragic. And we see some moments of vulnerability, like whether it's put on or not, where he's when he does get apprehended or found, he's like pleading with them. He's like, I don't want to be the king.
And again, this might be controversial for me to say, but I do think some of the worst people alive have tragic stories, though. They have.
Yeah. It's what makes the monster.
Yes.
And part of it's him, part of it's his circumstance. It all comes together just to create this horrible mess. But like, you feel for it in that, like in that, which I recognize I'm kind of jumping ahead here.
No.
But he's acknowledging it. Like, he knows what he is, and on some level, he hates it.
Yes.
He, like, his quote, I even wrote this down. He's like, so this is later in the episode when Aemond has him restrained.
Yes.
He's like, let me go. I have no wish to rule. No taste for duty. I'm not suited. And Aemond responds, you'll get no argument from me.
It's just too good. It's
yeah, but that's his whole thing. Is He then goes on. He's like, "Let me go. I'll disappear. I'll get on a boat. You'll never see me again." Like, I don't want to do this. I'm not the guy.
Yeah.
But everybody else is like, yeah, but my boss says that you're up. So here we go.
They're like, it doesn't work that way. It does not work that way. But chronologically going back to where we were,
okay, so they're searching.
Real quick.
Yeah.
We cut to the Iron Throne. Otto has brought in all the lords that stay in.
Yes.
And he pretty much tells them that Aegon is the king. Viserys is dead. Aegon will be king. Swear fealty now.
And most of them do.
Most
pretty
of them
quick.
do. But there's those two, that lord and lady, like I there's a part of me that just has to respect, like, they know what they're doing. They know their lives are in jeopardy. But I think there's a level of like, okay, well, if I do this, like, I'm standing, one, for what I believe in, and two, my family will defend, like my family won't just be like, oh no.
Yeah. But then there's another character that has a bit of a story throughout this episode, who I didn't catch the character name, but
Lord Caswell.
Okay, so we don't have to refer to him as not John Malkovich.
Well, they've even made an effort. Lord Caswell has always been the one who supports Rhaenyra. Like, after the final time jump, when Rhaenyra's walking through the castle, he's the first to come up and congratulate her.
Okay, yeah, I haven't been tracking any of this, but it makes sense.
I've been making note of that.
I appreciate it.
And when Rhaenyra returns to King's Landing, I think it was in the last episode, Lord Caswell is the only person who comes out to greet them.
Oh, yeah, I do remember that now.
Yeah.
Yes.
So he's quite loyal to Rhaenyra.
Yeah, and so to summarize the scene, you have the two true holdouts. Do you have their house names? Okay.
I miss them.
Two.
Brave souls.
That do not bend the knee. And then Caswell,
yes,
you say, who hesitates, but then decides to play along.
Play along and say, all hail the king. But I'm so used to saying his name.
Huh?
Lord Strong.
Larys.
Larys picks up on that. And if it shows him sort of like peeking over and watching.
He is an observant one.
He's our little finger or our little foot.
Oh. Okay, yeah. I'm gonna leave that in. That was funny. Always with the dino references, this one.
But something that I wanted to just, and again, I know we already discussed that Erryk and Arryk split. Arryk stays with Team Green, while Erryk moves on to Team Black. But we're seeing this argument going forth, and Erryk is trying to show his brother, like, hey, this is who we're making king. This is the monster I've had to watch. You don't know what he's like. He's not a good person.
Yeah, and he's one of those that's like recognizing the magnitude of this moment.
Yes.
He's like, it's not a matter of orders. Like, this is going to have repercussions through all time.
Yes. He's like, we are not doing the realm any favors by making this monster king.
Which is just another little moment that I love in this episode, seeing all of like the little inner workings of this great plot, which is like barreling forward, but it has little setbacks for honorable men like good old Erryk.
Yes. And a woman comes up to the brothers, and she says, I know where the prince is. And she says that she'll tell Otto, or more specifically, the White Wyrm will tell Otto. And at first they were going to wave her off, but then they realized that she might have something, and they follow her. We go back to the Red Keep, and this is where Caswell gets arrested.
Yeah, as he's trying to split.
Yes, because earlier he was preparing to leave and he was almost out. Like he had a horse, the guards were opening it up, and he literally gets pulled off his horse and brought to Otto, and
we see him one more time this episode.
We only see him one more time. But Otto confronts God damn it. Larys. He confronts Larys about how close he is with Queen Alicent. And Larys says, to me, again, I didn't quite remember this scene, but I know we've talked about that. I believe Larys is a more cunning and a more intelligent character than Otto.
Mm-hmm.
Otto has more power. Larys has more intelligence.
Yes. And he in his just trademark Larys way, he comes in and all flowery, he's like, yes, I've had communications with Lady Alicent, but there's no reason that couldn't ultimately benefit you as well.
And to me, like, I don't think Otto would have been able to respond that quickly and in that way if he was put into that same situation.
No, probably not. That's his specialty. But the headline here is Larys and Otto low-key teaming up.
They're low-key teaming up. But as we find out in this episode, it's not like he's switching over to Team Otto. He is very much...
Yeah, because I mentioned that there's a bit of a civil war. That seems like too strong a word for it, but a conflict within the Greens going on right now, which is overtly Otto versus Alicent, like jostling for who is going to be leading the team moving forward.
Yes.
So Larys is obviously Alicent, and like you got Cole and Aemond and her children are Alicent, and then you've got Erryk and Erryk that are Otto, and he has others.
Let me pose this question to you.
Mm-hmm.
Do you think, because we've mentioned that Larys is this show's Littlefinger. Do you think that he's playing puppet master over here, setting the two up to fight each other so they're forced to rely on Larys?
Chestnut checkers.
Chestnut checkers.
Yeah, I could see it.
Because, and it definitely on the site of Alicent, at this point in time, the only person that Alicent is probably closer to, like, Otto is the person that Alicent is closest to. If he alienates Alicent from her father...
Yeah, and we get some indication that they have a bit more of an intimate relationship than we were aware of.
I have so many comments on that.
We'll get there.
I have so many comments. But this is where we get to where Viserys is getting wrapped up.
Okay, and I have to pause the podcast just to point out this shot of Alicent with the handkerchief on her mouth in the window, with the surrounded by the candles and just like a little bit of like incense smoke. My God, what a frame.
Yeah.
Print it out, put it on your wall, put it in a fucking museum. That's my boy Alejandro.
That's art.
I legitimately had to pause the episode just to appreciate that moment.
It is a good. And I'm realizing now that I misled the audience in this. Patty Constantine is in this episode.
See? Yeah. That's next episode, Bryce. That's the first. Spoilers.
I just wanted to point out that he actually is in the episode, and we see him as they finish wrapping him up. The Silent Sisters finish wrapping him up.
And yet there's kind of a moment where Alicent gives herself like 30 seconds to grieve.
Yes.
At least that's how I read that scene. Is like she wants to mourn. Like
yes.
she goes up there like she feels devastated by this turn of events, but then right as the like tears start to come, she realized like, no, this is a critical moment. Like I need to stay on my game.
Yes.
Because of everything that's going on.
And something that's very notable in this scene as well is that Alicent places Viserys' crown on Viserys' body.
Yes.
The crown is left with Viserys.
Mm-hmm.
Very important that no one is watching over said crown.
No? Okay, I assume you're going to have a little more on that later because that
Next week.
Okay, that is not the crown that they intend to place on Aegon's head.
Yes. And I'll say this, Aegon's crown, it's so dope.
It's awesome.
But we'll get to that
Fit
more.
picks at the end, everybody.
But we get to probably one of the most, like, it's a very I don't want to say it's a very intense scene. I love this scene, but it's the scene of Rhaenys and Alicent.
Love it.
It's such a good scene. And Rhaenys is pissed.
I kind of want to give Eve Best MVP of this episode.
Oh, easily.
For this scene alone, really, they give her a bunch of just dynamite lines, and she knocks them all out of the park.
You know who had big dragon energy in this episode?
Rhaenys!
Rhaenys had big dragon energy in this episode.
Take note, fellas.
Like, she, like, in the most, like, I wouldn't say that we've seen her as, she's been more of a background character. She's obviously been supportive of Corlys. She's had a significant role, but I think this is where we're like, okay, no, she is part of the Targaryen dynasty. She is a powerful figure. This is who the land was going to select as the queen. Like, this is...
And that's part of it, where in this very scene, Alicent says to her, you should have been the queen. Which I mean, she's said in other episodes, Rhaenys has said that she's over it. But I have to assume that this appeals to pathos a little bit. Like I'm sure that this is getting her to let her guard down, at least on some level.
I also want to point out, like, I said earlier as well, that Alicent doesn't lie. She either just doesn't know her husband or she told a lie, because she said that if she was queen, if Rhaenys was queen.
I have the quote if you need it. You want it?
Yeah, go ahead, let's hear it.
Okay, because that's exactly what she says. And it's so on the money, except for one. Okay. So the quote is, she says, "You should have been queen. The Iron Throne was yours by blood and by temperament. Viserys would have lived his days a country lord, content to hunt and study his histories. But here we are. We do not rule, but we may guide the men that do, gently away from violence and sure destruction, and instead toward peace." But right there, if we zoom back a little bit, Viserys would have lived his days a country lord, content to hunt?
No, he was not a hunter. We know that he would have read and he would have done his minis. That's all he would have done.
Well, studying his histories does sort of encompass the studying the miniatures, because that's like an exercise where he's studying the.
Yeah, but
But I don't think he'd be doing a lot of hunting.
Nobody's gonna hunt because he's terrible at it. It's very clearly shown he's a bad hunter.
Then again, he was pretty excited when they were going on the hunt.
I think
That, because remember, it was his whole, he had so much riding on that where he just wanted to have a nice outing.
Let me pose this. Do you think he was actually excited about the hunt, or is it like when people are excited to go camping in a cabin?
Maybe. Yeah. Yeah.
They're like, we are going out into the wilderness. And
Roughing it.
We're going to be roughing it in this cabin that is $750,000.
But zooming back into this scene.
Yes.
Great scene.
Yes.
They then continue their discussion.
Yes. And Alicent is almost begging for Rhaenyra's support. Like, she's begging Rhaenys to support Aegon and bring the Velaryons over to their side. And
yeah, but Rhaenys, it's not happening.
Well-
Like she's like, my word, the like word of my family is not like that fickle. This you're not getting anywhere with me.
Well, and again, I know there's more. It's her word. It's the fact that her granddaughters are engaged to Rhaenyra's children, but also, I don't think Rhaenys is ever going to forgive Team Green for the comments they made about Laenor. Like, again, I know I keep bringing it up, and I know it's such a small moment, but it's not even a small moment. But those comments, they insulted Laenor directly, publicly, in front of the entire court and the king, presumably either the day before or less than a week before Lenore
Brian?
before Lenore died.
Yeah.
So there, like, it was never going to happen.
At the very least, a factor
Yeah.
in this conversation. But she does admit, Rhaenys, to Alicent that she's like, oh, I didn't write down the quote, but it's something to the effect of like, oh, you're more with it than I thought. You're more of a player than I reckoned.
Yes.
And then they have jumping off that other part of the first quote idea did, where they talk about how they don't get to rule because they're women, but
Yes.
they have the chance to guide the men on the straight and narrow. There's a powerful exchange that follows from there.
Yes. Before that exchange happens, I assume, I think I know which exchange you're talking about, but before, Alicent makes it known that she's like, well, if you're not going to support us, the main thing that we need is Meleys?
Meleys.
Meleys. We've been saying that one wrong.
We have. That's why I was like, oop, I gotta write that down.
Meleys. They mainly don't want Meleys to be on Rhaenyra's side. And Alicent says it.
Yeah, it's like us drafting the dragons last episode.
Exactly.
You just look at the dragons, and if they got a rider with a good head on their shoulders, that's a bonus.
And as we come to find out, Meleys is not too shabby in a fight.
Ooh, yeah. We'll get some discussion on that.
But
at the end of the
you have a
episode.
quote? Oh, sorry, I didn't.
Oh yeah. So they're talking about a woman's role in all of this, kind of. And Alicent says something. The quote is, "A true queen counts the cost to her people."
Mm-hmm.
To which Rhaenys responds, "And yet you toil still in service to men, your father, your husband, your son. You desire not to be free, but to make a window in the wall of your prison." Devastating!
Not only devastating, but I don't think there's any more line more accurate of Alicent as a character.
Yeah,
Like, that's
it's so concisely just slices through her whole issue.
yeah. Like, again, like it is so sad, but it really does seem like the only thing Alicent wants is a window in her prison. Like that.
And then the last part of this scene, I mean, we could do an hour on this scene, but
Yes.
I'm gonna exercise some restraint. Rhaenys asks Alicent if she's ever imagined herself on the Iron Throne, and the way I read the scene, having watched at this point 8.5 episodes with this character, I think she hasn't.
No,
I think this is really the first moment where she's like, oh, yeah.
here's the thing though.
It's not more that. It's a sadder, oh, yeah, but
It's more of a recognition. But in Alicent's defense, we talk about how the people would riot or the people would like stand up if Rhaenyra was named. But if a non-Targaryen woman was sitting on the throne, people wouldn't have it.
yeah.
When there's existing Targaryens alive. I know that Cersei, spoiler alert, I know that Cersei ends up sitting on the Iron Throne in a Game of Thrones. But again, I don't know how accurate that's actually going to end up being, because I think everyone hates the Lannisters at that point in time in a Game of Thrones, and I don't think they would have.
Yeah, but back to House of the Dragon.
Yes.
I do think you have a point. Regardless, I think that this lights a little fire inside of Alicent to hear this from a woman that she so respects.
Yes. Any last things on this particular scene?
Great scene.
Great scene.
One of the best.
One of the better ones in the show. So, Criston Cole's just, wandering around, looking under tables, looking in the cupboards.
Scooby-Dooing it.
Scooby-Dooing it. And what does he find? He sees Ser Erryk and Ser Arryk sitting at a table with a weird cloaked figure with a familiar beard under the cloak.
Lucky break for Cole.
Lucky break for Cole. And we see that Lady Misery, Mysaria,
Yeah.
the White Wyrm, comes. And I want to get your thoughts on this. Otto, do you think Otto actually doesn't know who the White Wyrm is? Or do you think he's playing it up for Erryk and Erryk?
Well, she wanted to meet the Hand of the King. Like, she was like, I was gonna relay this information only to he has to know.
Yeah, that's the thing. I think he's playing it up because he said to Viserys when he discovered that Rhaenyra was in the brothel with Daemon that a very reliable source who has not let him down yet let him know that happened.
Yep.
So to me, that seems he knows who she is. He has seen her before. They literally saw each other on the bridge. And Mysaria, is it Mysaria?
Mysaria, yeah.
Yeah, Mysaria is saying that she will that she has Aegon, and she will give him up for a price. And so they give him the gold, but then she also says that she wants all the children, presumably all the children that we've been seeing in the pits, saved, because apparently the City Watch have been paid off not to do it. And Otto just gives the most like politician-y answer. Like, if I was Lady Mysaria, I would have not given the information if he's like, I'll look into it.
Yeah.
Like, no.
It's also literally child slave fighting rings.
Yes. And to point out, slavery is illegal in Westeros.
This may be news to some listeners and maybe one host on this show. But yeah,
it's
not
illegal.
just is it wrong, it's illegal.
It's illegal. It is wrong, but it's also illegal. And Otto's like, I'll look into it, but where's Aegon? Give me Aegon. And
They make a deal, though.
they make a deal.
Are we ready to declare Mysaria as the worst character in the show?
No.
No? Because I listen, I know she's going to stick around.
Well, okay, sorry. Worst character in the show, performance-wise, or worst, like, character?
Kind of both. And I think that the performance is more the accent, which I don't know if it's wishful thinking. I feel like every time we see her, it's a little better.
I felt like it was worse. There's a particular, like, when she's talking about the children, I'm like, okay, this is like, again, this is not shade at the actress.
Yeah, I'm sure she's doing the best that she can.
But it just sounded so bad when she was particularly talking about the children in the.
You can't take her serious.
No.
But as a character too, like
How is Aegon not worse?
No, I'm not saying about like morally worse. I'm talking about like just a boring, like unexciting presence in this show. Because the accent, it's a problem.
Yeah.
And we've talked about that. We don't need to keep going over that. I don't know what this character's about. Like, she talks about how she wants to stop the child, like slavery fighting that we just learned about, was just introduced in this episode. And like on top of that, she talked about how she was with Daemon for a while, but that didn't really turn into anything. She's like, on paper, she sounds like this like really cool, like badass chick with like the best spy network in all of King's Landing, but it's not translating in the show thus far.
There's an old saying in Tennessee.
Do they have it here too?
They might have it here too. Watch and wait.
Oh, okay.
Watch and wait.
That's what I'm saying. Like, I have a feeling she's gonna stick around, and maybe it's gonna be awesome in season 2, 3, whatever. So far I'm just like, oh, like every time Mysaria shows up, I'm like, okay, well this is nothing.
I'll say this. I have not read Fire. Is it Fire and Blood or
maybe?
I haven't read the book.
It's not called just A Dance of Dragons,
No.
is it?
I have not read the book that this is based off of, and I've been purposely trying to avoid spoilers.
Yeah, how's that going for you?
Not well.
It's rough when you're doing a House of the Dragon podcast.
Not well. And I think it's just I don't want to say too much because I don't want to even spoil, but we're gonna find out quickly her worth as a character.
I hope so. It is called Fire and Blood, by the way.
Fire and Blood.
You were right with that.
Okay, yeah, we're going to find out how, and she may not be exciting herself, but we're going to see the level of power and influence. Well, maybe we don't, because she might have died in this episode. I don't know.
Who knows?
But is there anything else you want to discuss with Mysaria?
No, so she gives up the location, and then they go and get Aegon
At the set.
Yeah, which I thought was very funny because nobody would ever think to look for him in a holy place.
No. And it was incredible. Like, I love that temple, like that sept in particular.
Yeah, and we've only seen it a few times in the series, but it's a great set.
Yes. I want to point out also, they find Aegon underneath the place with all the candles, which is where Rhaenyra and Alicent prayed after Rhaenyra's mother died.
Yeah.
So it's like,
what about it?
It's just cool that like we see that he's there, like he's literally hiding under the same shelf that her mother was like his mother was praying at.
Oh, yeah. I did see some comments online of people interpreting the beast beneath the boards comment to be referring to Aegon under the table here. I don't really buy into that, but I saw it repeated enough that I thought it might be worth a mention.
You know, I'll say this. Helaena says it twice. So it could be referring to two
separate beasts.
Yes.
Food for that.
Food for thought.
But they get him, and then I sort of already went through a lot of this where he doesn't want to go. He's like, I'm not supposed to be the king. I'm a horrible person. Everyone here knows it. The only thing I don't think I mentioned is that because there's a bit of a kerfuffle there where Alicent's agents are struggling with Otto's agents as who's gonna turn in
half of Otto's agents.
That's it, yeah. Because Erryk, with an E, as in elephant,
Mr. E, Ser E,
just sort of stands aside, which is, you could argue, is why Aemond and Cole get the prince. I think they probably would have walked away with it regardless.
There's no way that like both Erryk and Arryk are great knights. Like they're part of the Seven, but they're not gonna beat Cristen Cole, and they're not going to beat Aemond.
No, these two are S tier. Like, get out of here.
But Erryk, I think this is the moment where Erryk
makes a choice.
He makes a choice. He's like, okay, I'm done. I'm not helping this anymore.
Yeah, he's not gonna especially seeing that Aegon is resisting. He's like, okay, I am not going to facilitate putting the worst human being I'm aware of on the Iron Throne.
Yeah, like no, he makes a decision, and
It's a cool little sword fight, though.
oh, it is.
I will say.
We haven't seen really that many sword fights in this season. Like,
No. Yeah, and I would say that's for all the dragons, but we haven't really seen any dragon fights either.
no. I wonder if we're going to see any dragon fights, Austin.
Surely they're on the way.
Nah, I don't think there are any.
All right, what happens next?
Otto prepares a letter.
Hmm?
But as Otto is preparing the letter, Alicent, it's very obvious that they've been fighting. Like, Alicent is confronting Otto, essentially that he had sent agents and wasn't keeping her informed on how he was finding Aegon. Because the only reason that Cristen and Aemond found Aegon was because Cole was watching and Scooby-Dooing it.
Yeah. Lucky break, as I said.
Yeah, exactly. And Alicent, like, Otto is, I think this is probably one of the most, like, he's disappointed, obviously. He's upset because it didn't go according to his plan. But I think this is probably the most proud of Alicent that he ever has been, with maybe the exception of convincing the king to marry.
Yeah, and this scene is kind of him admitting defeat in this like mini conflict, where and on top of that, it's, as we've said, Alicent coming to terms with who her father is.
Yeah, like specifically when she said our hearts were never one, because Otto, like, I think one of the reasons I don't like, there's a lot of reasons I don't like Otto, but one of the reasons
I got time.
Austin, do we want this episode to be 3 hours long?
You're like, his hair, whack. His dress, whack. His voice, false.
Everything about him. No, it's but he's just so manipulative of his own daughter. Like, he very much is trying to emotionally manipulate her this entire scene. Like, everything he's doing, and to Alicent's credit, she's not falling for any of it.
Yeah.
And
She's over. This is her like ascending to the top of Team Green.
yes.
She's taking that throne. Even though Aegon's going on the official throne, she's running the show.
Yes.
Also, as you were saying, Otto or Alicent says something like, "You used me as a piece in a game."
Yes.
And he's like, "Yes, but if that's true, then I made you a queen." I liked the chess metaphor there.
Great metaphor. But I think we see a couple things where she establishes her dominance. Now, I know that I mentioned this back in episode 2, but even though I think Otto knows Criston Cole is loyal and Criston Cole will do whatever Alicent says, I still don't think he is too fond of Criston Cole.
Otto?
Yeah.
Oh, yeah, no. All the way back to, what is that, episode 2?
Yeah. Because, like, back then he refused to even look at Criston Cole. And one of the last things that Alicent does in this interaction is she tells her father that Criston Cole is going to be named Lord Commander of the King's Guard, which Lord Commander of the King's Guard, again, has more significance than just being in charge of the King's bodyguards.
No, we've established it's on the small
It's
council.
on the small council. And he's essentially, now there is a master of war, but he's essentially one of the top generals now because of that position.
Which, he seems like a bit of a loose cannon to me. I'm not sure that that's the wisest decision on Alicent's part. He's a good operator. He's a good bodyguard. We'll see how the rest pans out.
On a battlefield, you might want a little bit of a loose cannon.
Maybe.
And again, even though we see the defeat in Otto, like, even when Alicent walks out and as he's like, "As you wish," like, to me, like, that
And that day, she was amazed to discover that when he was saying, "as you wish," what he meant was, "I love you."
Well, exactly. I really think that that's like, I'm so proud of her. Like, she's done it.
I jest, but yeah, like for real, like this is what he wanted from his daughter.
Yes. He's been saying that all this time, that he wants her to be a player. He wants her to not just see the game, but become an active player as he is.
To take over the family business.
He wants to retire so he can pass it along.
But on more of a serious note, this does read like him consenting to his L, where like, okay, no,
To this
you're the boss for today, at least.
Yes. Austin, I think it's time.
Huh?
I think it's time to talk about the scene.
Oh, are we there already?
We're there. The scene immediately after, because Alicent goes to her room.
It's not that bad. You're talking about it like it's a rope scene.
Hear me out. Hear me out.
That's a euphemism.
It's a euphemism. Alicent walks into her room and she discovers she's not alone, and that Lord Larys is there, and that he is feeding her piece by piece information.
Yeah, I think that's the scene starts. He's like, "There's something you should know. I have info."
And again, I know I alluded that in this episode there were several things that I did not pick up on in the watching this for the first time. I don't know why I didn't pick up on this for the first when I watched this episode for the first time. This is not the first time this has happened. Like,
well, no, but it's the first time we've seen it.
it's the first time we've seen it, but this is clearly an ongoing relationship that they've had where Larys provides information and Alicent shows off her feet.
Yeah.
To Larys.
It all feels consensual.
It's consensual, yes. But she has been like dogging Rhaenyra this entire time.
I see where you're going with it. Yeah.
Saying, again, I know that they're not having sex. I know that Larys and Alicent are not having some sort of like
P and the V.
Yes. But this is still an overtly sexual relationship that they're having. And the whole point that she's having, and again, she's selling herself for information.
In a sense, yeah.
I mean, I can't see how this is not hypocritical on her part. Again, I understand. There's physical evidence. You could say, oh, she's mocking the royal such and such. But how is the queen showing off, going on Feet Finder to post? Not any better.
There are levels to it.
And
I think you brushed that off a little bit, where it's like Rhaenyra is having children out of wedlock.
Again, I'm not brushing that off. I understand
not
that.
just out of wedlock, that's with not her husband.
It's consensual with her husband. You think Viserys knew?
Okay. That's a good point. That is a very good point.
Viserys is not even benefiting off of the information. This is all things for Alicent, not for Viserys.
Yeah. Kind of shady.
Kind of shady.
Now the question is, would if this wasn't the nature of their relationship, would Larys still be offering information to Alicent?
That's an excellent question.
We don't know.
No.
I mean, I like to think probably, and this is maybe just a means of keeping everybody a little extra happy in the relationship. But yeah, I don't know. I don't know. I don't know if that was his goal, like primary goal in approaching her after Otto was dismissed in the first place. But it's hard to tell.
Thing is, we know he is attracted to Alicent. That has like been brought up multiple times.
Yeah.
Like, so I think there's always going to be that level of loyalty. I don't know if it necessarily, he may have gone above and beyond the Call of Duty.
I'm just imagining him like as like a virgining youth that he's like, I'm going to become the ultimate spy master so one day I can see the queen's feet. And it's just like so preposterous, but you know, maybe once he finds himself in this situation, he applies a little leverage.
I will say this, my favorite discussions about this episode online are all the debates on like why is it feet for him, and there are those like, oh, it's because his own feet are deformed, and they're like, no, he wants to just make it's a power move over Alicent, and they're like, no.
I don't think we're gonna get to the bottom of that in this episode.
Oh, I think we can. just kidding.
If you want to voice a dissenting opinion,
comment it below.
I'll say to you, Bryce, if you want to voice a dissenting opinion, you may, but I just feel like I should probably say, like, there's nothing wrong with a foot fetish.
No.
Like, there are so many worse sexual kinks.
Okay, I am.
So, like, because within that discussion, there's a lot of shaming that I also noticed that I felt was kind of unfair. That's all I want to do. So, to any of our listeners, you got a foot fetish? Count your blessings. It's cool. Find a partner who's all right with it.
Okay, now we got that out of the way. Just kidding.
And no comment from the other side of the table.
No, the reason that I have such strong feelings about it is, again, we've had conversations, and again, I know it's different levels. I know it doesn't reach the same level of what Rhaenyra has been having children with someone she's not married to. But again, everything that was going on in Rhaenyra's marriage was consensual, and Laenor knew about it. This is something that clearly is not being made known about it, and it's something that Alicent knows is wrong. Like she knows it's wrong.
Great point on your part. I'll offer a tiny bit of pushback on. I think there's room. No, like I'm with you. They're like, it's a sexual relationship.
Yeah,
a pretty formal one at that. And no penetration, which is notable, but it's a sexual relationship.
Yes.
Alicent might feel differently, and if she does, then she's deceiving herself. But I guess that I can do the gymnastics a little bit to be like, okay, I see how she gets here and still feels like she has the high ground. But you are right that she doesn't, or rather that high ground's a lot lower than it sounded before this scene.
Of course. And the only thing that I will add on to this is like, what would Viserys have done if he found out about this?
Ooh.
Like, we can make all the justifications we can do, but I have a feeling that there'd be two heads decorating King's Landing.
I don't know about all that, but there'd be hell to pay.
Targaryens take take those sort of things a little.
See, it's just when you say that, I'm picturing episode 8 Viserys, where it's like that's enough to get him to like sit up in his bed, like what?
Episode 8 Viserys, where when his daughter was called a whore, he drew a knife out.
Fair.
Again, I am not kink shaming. We're sex positive over here. We're
Try to be.
try to be sex positive. I am more upset by what it stands for this particular
I
character.
think that you've made your point very well, and I think all of that's very clear.
All right.
This moves.
I like this montage.
It's nice. Like again, the music in this episode, great. It swells up for a moment here, and we get some nice cross dissolves. Sort of just everybody sort of waiting.
Yes. Well, that's what I put. I put Aegon eating, Otto thinking, Alicent thinking, Rhaenys waiting.
Mm-hmm.
And then we hear in the hallway, move aside. And Ser Erryk comes in, and I want to make note. He has a satchel.
Does he?
He has a yes, he does.
What about it?
Well, again, we're going to find out next week. But there may have been an unguarded item that he picked up for somebody that he's going to go support.
Yeah. But he springs Rhaenys.
Yes.
They're gone.
They're gone.
And I mean, she hood up. They head down, walking out. And then this is where we see not John Malkovich.
Lord Caswell.
Hanging by the neck.
Loyal to Rhaenyra.
Dead as a doornail.
To the bitter end.
So creepy, but they're moving with haste.
Yes.
And then they make it into the city.
They make it,
but get kind of swept up in a crowd and separated.
Not quite, because as they're escaping to the city, they do a quick cut again because it's at night, and we see that the brothel that Masera works out of is burning.
Oh yeah. Well, that's because we glossed over that. we got caught up in the. Okay, I can do it. I can do it really quick.
Yeah,
So
go ahead.
the info that is relayed by Larys to Alicent over that whole exchange.
The feet.
Yeah, I was just so distracted. I was so taken aback. I couldn't believe what I was seeing.
My virgin eyes, watching such pornography on the screen.
HBO has crossed the line.
Well, let's be real. They crossed the line when they gave us the close-up of Larry's feet right before the scene gets going, when he's like dragging himself in.
The intel that Alicent gets from this exchange is that there is an established spy network being run by the White Wyrm, and that this White Wyrm has an agent in close proximity to Alicent, which is then revealed to be Talia. And I do love this. Like, a little bit of me wishes that there was more like spy versus spy in this episode, but it does sort of beg the question of like whose spy network is stronger.
Well, again, I think that I shouldn't say again. This, I think, is referring, like, giving a little creed to a Game of Thrones. Now, it's mentioned a couple times in the show, but the books do a better job. Every member of the small council, every person that has some authority has a spy network in King's Landing. Varys has a spy network. Littlefinger has a spy network. Cersei has a spy network. Everybody has a spy network in there.
Everybody worth a damn's got one.
Exactly.
I'm working on mine.
my agent Ramsey, he's not that great.
That would be Bryce's dog, who is very lovable, dumb as a pile of bricks.
What's the quote from Attack on Titan? He's a few sandwiches short of a picnic.
But you were saying everybody in Game of Thrones worth a damn has a spy network of some degree.
Yes. And I just wish that it showed that people had more of a spy network. I do want to make, again, I've been comparing. I feel like this episode is a little unfair of me on how much I've compared Alicent to Cersei, but there are several parallels that we see to Alicent and Cersei. Namely, Cersei's own handmaiden was a spy on Cersei, who was reporting to the Tyrells what Cersei was doing. While Talia, who is Alicent's handmaiden, is a spy reporting to the White Wyrm.
Mm-hmm.
So we're seeing some parallels, but I think we're also seeing, like,
Circumstantial, surely.
Surely.
No, you have a point. I think especially last episode we were seeing more overt parallels.
Yes.
The discussion though between Larys and Alicent, leads to him suggesting that the queen bee, as it were, the white worm, be taken out.
They cut off the head of the snake.
And she's like, well, that seems like something you can take care of. And he's like, maybe.
And that's when
Right. And then, okay, Rhaenys gets jailbroken by Erryk. And they're heading out. Where are we at?
This sequence for the rest of the show, I think it's perfect. Because we're seeing Erryk and Rhaenys going through the city. Everybody is getting funneled out of their homes. Like, everybody's being forced out. Erryk and Rhaenys get split up, and they find out that they're going to the dragon pit.
Mm-hmm.
And while that's going on, Alicent
Is it the dragon pit?
It is the dragon.
I mean,
pit.
I know it's okay. Yeah. Keep going.
Alicent is in the carriage with Aegon, and
Aegon is still expressing some reluctance to ascend the throne.
Yes.
And he's like, my father never loved me. Again, the parallel with him and Daemon. Then Alicent's talking to him like, no, he said that you were up. It was his dying breath. And it's like tragic character, and you can tell how big a deal this is to him. So I think that he starts to drink the Kool-Aid a little bit in this for how much he wants to believe it.
I think he starts to sip the Kool-Aid, but he sees he starts to sip the Kool-Aid after he's given the dagger. Before, like, he's seeing it for what it is. He's like, he didn't want me king. He had all his time when he was alive, and he never named me heir. Like, why would he do it at the very end? He never loved me. He never cared. Like, he...
Which he's right about.
Exactly. Like, he's... Like, that's the tragic part. Like, he's right. Like... And it's just so funny to me that, like, everyone knows, like, not that Alicent is lying, but, like, everyone knows that
what's happening. Yeah. Like, it's the gears are plain to see. It's almost as frustrating as the situation with Rhaenyra's children for this viewer.
Yes, I'd say it's a very apt comparison.
The scene ends with Aegon asking Alicent if she loves him, to which she responds, "You imbecile!" I'm going to say not the right answer.
I will say this, though. I think Alicent answers the question quite full-heartedly later on in the episode.
Yeah?
Yeah. We'll get to it, though.
Okay.
But we get to the dragon pit, and I know we've seen the dragon pit, but at this shot, I loved
Which shot?
When we're outside of the dragon pit.
Oh,
It just gave, like, Mesopotamian vibes to it. Like, it's just this ancient building with covered in ruins, and it's just...
I do like the design of it. I actually did take note of this shot for looking... like the CGI seems showing a little bit. Like it just looks a little fake, which I'll give a little. And the CGI in this show is generally exceptional. This was a weaker composition. So
how was the dragon pit in Excalibur, Austin?
It's all practical, dude. It's pre-CGI. I'm glad that you dug it.
Oh,
I didn't want to take that away from you, but that was actually something I wrote down.
For me, I'm such a sucker for ancient, like, architecture. I love just seeing the designs of, like, how old buildings and old temples are. And again,
you're down for some columns.
Yeah, I'm down for some columns. I'm down for some domes. I'm down for some pyramids. And it just had such Mesopotamia vibes to it. And I was all for it. And everyone starts filing in.
Wondering what's going on. And I'll say this. Otto... Rhys
Ifen.
Rhys.
Rhys Ifen. he has a pretty like powerful voice.
You're just now noticing?
I mean, like when he's yelling, like when he's trying to project his voice loudly.
Oh yeah.
Like,
and we've seen this in the earlier scene with the other nobles where he's like, I swear allegiance, or.
but he's not yelling that out. He's like, he's acting as a herald right now, announcing that Viserys is dead, and that with his dying breath, he named Aegon as heir.
Yeah, and off of the bat, the people seem weirdly cool with this. And maybe that's just them being like, don't kill us, please.
Well, again, I don't want to keep calling back to a Game of Thrones, but there was a line in a Game of Thrones that Daenerys was talking with, I believe it was Jorah, and how she's like, the people are praying for me to come. Like, the people want me to be queen. And Jorah says something along the lines of like, the people pray for rain. The people pray for food. Like, they don't care about the lords that played the Game of Thrones. Essentially like saying, as long as the people are still being fed and are happy, they don't care who's king. So
I hear you. Yeah. I mean, they watch their plays and might have some opinions, but it's not quite so, it's not consuming their lives the way it is the characters that we see in this world.
let me tell you, Austin, they're not stopping the steal.
Not a political podcast. Aegon's entrance. What a moment. I see, that's the moment where I was like, maybe this is the guy.
For me, I don't know what it is. I'm a sucker though for medieval trumpets. Like, like
Noted.
Like when they started going off, there's like, at first I was like, oh, that's a little corny, but I'm like, actually, no, like this is pretty cool. Like,
well, I was just such a fan of the, I don't know if you could call them the color guard with the swords.
yeah.
Where they're so like regimented, and they make the tunnel of swords for him to walk through, and then as he passes each one, they swipe it behind his back.
We've lost so much culture, Austin. Yeah. We have the people have lost so much. Like,
but you know what the other thing in the back of my head was?
huh.
That any one of those soldiers could have just lopped off this monster's head, saved so much drama.
Yeah,
I mean, they would have died too, but
they would have died in several years because they would have done everything to torture that man until he was dead.
Yeah, that would have been a 2-man job, I guess. And then they just stab each other. Man.
And again, the music is just on point. Like, other than the trumpets, like as he's walking and being like getting the ritual performed by the High Septon.
Yeah, and so that's what's going on in this scene, though, is like all of the pageantry. I feel like it's one for the people. Like, that's why they're bringing everybody into this like central spot and like presenting the new king. Like, it's just good PR. But I also feel like it's equally for Aegon. Like,
Yes.
this is them like showing him that he is the king.
Yes.
And they're doing a pretty good job of it.
Again, I know that this particular line is in the next episode, but Alicent says something similar. Aegon has Aegon the Conqueror's crown. Aegon has Aegon the Conqueror's sword, Blackfire, which Blackfire is just such a dope sword. Like, when he raises it up and we just see like such a, and again, his name is Aegon. He shares the same name as Aegon the Conqueror. Like, they're very much trying.
And did you notice, because they do the coronation, he gets the crown put on his head, Rhaenys slips away before this. But they do the ceremony, and do you know who announces him as Aegon II, king of the 7 whatever, the
King of the Andals, the Rhaenyra.
But he announces him as Aegon II of his name. A callback to episode 3. It's the same man who? Hobart Hightower.
But the crown is placed on his head by Kristen Cole.
Yes.
Which, the book I've heard the book makes, well, no, it's not. Yeah, the book, A Song of Ice and Fire, they make it a big deal that it's Cole. Like the book almost makes it seem like Cole was the one who named Aegon.
What do you think that's about? Is that like a tortured man ringing in the new king? Or...
I think it has more to do with that he, like, again, as Lord Commander of the King's Guard, you control the forces in the castle. And he could have kept the wishes, but instead he chose to name Aegon as king. Again, I don't feel like the show does a good enough, and maybe the book, because it's in A Song of Ice and Fire, Criston Cole is infamous. He's viewed as a very almost villainous character because Rhaenyra was supposed to be the queen, but they name Aegon, and
so it's like how. This isn't a spoiler for Game of Thrones. Not spoilers for Game of Thrones. It's like how Jaime is the one who kills the Mad King before any of Game of Thrones comes to pass. And it's like, yeah, there were a lot of people involved in that, but because he was the one who performed the act,
yes,
it falls on his name, Kingslayer.
And again, I don't know, and I'm going to read the book. I'm going to read Fire and Blood eventually, but I don't know if it's more of a role that he plays. It's possible, but Criston Cole is so much more of a villain than anybody else in the Dance of Dragons.
Okay.
In history's standpoint.
Interesting. We'll bear that one in mind.
Something again I picked up on. Helaena is like actively looking away from Aegon the entire time.
I didn't pick up on that.
Like Aemond is like giving his brother dagger eyes. And Helaena looks at him a couple times, but for the most part, she's like overtly looking away from.
And we totally glossed over that Aemond basically says to Cole, like, it should have been me. Like,
I mean, we talked about it, but
yes. Yeah, I mean, that's the mention, like, he knows what it is to toil for what other people are freely given. But he says that, like, by all rights, he should be the one that ends up on the throne.
Again, a little weird since Aegon has a son.
But I'm just saying that and bringing it up because I'm sure that's what's going through his head.
Yes.
And this episode seems to be him like, okay, I'm going to play along with this plan, but he's sort of stated his desires.
Yes. That's very, and again, showing the broken family dynamic that's going on. And
then what happens, Bryce? You got a time code?
Not quite yet.
What's that written down?
Not quite yet. There's no time code quite yet because the people are going crazy. They've got their king. They got a new young king, and Aegon is celebrating.
Hooray.
And all of a sudden, there is. I just actually want to point out. I didn't see that many boards. I saw a lot of stone.
Tile.
I didn't see any boards that went flying because there was an explosion in the middle of the room. And at 56:34, Meleys comes in and looks so good with the smoke, and you just see the outline as she's just moving around, and people.
It's dope.
It's such a good scene. People are screaming. They're running out. And
presumably a lot of them just died.
Yeah. That's
something that's kind of glossed over in all of this.
Asta, do you not know what show we're watching? There are a lot of people that die in this.
I'm a little mixed on this ending, but we're getting into it. The look of it is awesome. And we're going to break down the dragon, but Meleys looks fantastic in this. So fierce.
Rhaenys has big dragon energy.
Totally.
And Alicent, again, she steps in front of Aegon to protect him. That, to me, that's showing Aegon that Meleys is coming in and it is looking like she's going to get they're all going to get Dracarys.
Uh-huh.
And rather than like go running, she visibly steps in front of it in a protective stance in front of her son. Again, if she didn't love him, she would not have done that.
Or it could just be the mother instinct, which that's probably a form of love.
Yeah.
But then Rhaenys, for whatever reason, whatever you want to put on it, decides not to incinerate all of the greens and gets out of there.
Yeah. She could have ended the war. Just ended the war before even it started.
Yeah. So how do you feel about this?
This is my thought. They needed something epic for episode 9. It's a tradition in a Game of Thrones. Something big always happens on episode 9. And as much as I loved the intrigue of this episode, it just wasn't that, like, it was intense, but it wasn't exciting. Would you say that that's...
I just live for that shit.
I do too, but...
I do feel what you're talking about, and it's like, you know what this episode really needs on top? A big, fiery, spiky dragon.
Yes. And I think they also just want to give Rhaenys her laurels. They wanted to give her a big moment. Like, she's not, like, again, she's had moments throughout the show, but she hasn't had a really moment to show how much of a badass she actually is. They haven't been able to show what could have been Queen Rhaenys. And I think that this was partially it. They wanted to...
But did it work for you? Just as an audience member, like on a gut level?
Yeah.
I can go.
Yeah, I liked it. Like,
it's a cool moment, and I'm saying I'm mixed. I'm not negative on it. I'm mixed. Where, again, she kills like 500 people by doing this, and then doesn't want to kill 5 more. Like, that's a little weird. But glossing over that, especially because the show doesn't want us to focus on that. There's no close-up. There's no emphasis of that. It's more just the destruction of the building and all that. I'm not sure that the whole like mother to mother thing really convinced me.
yeah.
It does a little bit. Like, I see what they're going for and I admire it. I don't know, like, I don't have another suggestion, but this wasn't in the book.
No.
This is a moment that's kind of tacked on to this part of the story, and it's not my favorite way one of these episodes ends. I think it's a little weak, and it's also just like, as an audience member, I'm like, yeah, burn them. Do it. Like, I'm Team Green and all that, but like, you got him cornered. Like, everybody you know is gonna die if you don't seize this opportunity. And in the next episode, she plays it off. She's like, it didn't feel like my war to start. And I'm like, really? Okay, I guess we need to have a show, and I love the show, but that's where I'm at with it.
I agree. I really think it just comes down to that they wanted, like, House of the Dragon. They told us that we were going to get a lot more dragon action. I think they just wanted to find something that would make sense, not really change too much, because like you said, it's not in the books. They created this themselves. It's something that they can show as big enough of a thing to make like episode 9, but not big enough that it's altering the course of an entire story.
Yeah, but that's as we talk it through, I think that's what my actual problem is there, is that it's so easily removed from the actual story. And there's just something in the mechanics of it that doesn't feel right. And I think
Fair.
That's where that comes from.
Fair. And again, like, I understand that, but I really don't know what else they could have done that.
Yeah. But then the other side of it is, I'm like, I respect the swing, and I have a dragon TV and movie podcast. Like, yes, hell yes, I am down for more dragon screen time.
Yes. No, I do want to do. Is there anything else we want to cover with that last little bit?
No,
or-
I think we're into final thoughts on the episode.
I do want to do a callback real quick, just
do it.
because it's something that's very. Again, I know it's almost a pet project for me that I keep bringing up, but I want to really just bring this point home. Otto very pointedly was going to kick this war off. He was, again, I keep saying that Otto has been fulfilling this self-fulfilling prophecy of like, when Viserys dies, there's going to be war, there's going to be blood. Rather than doing, like, again, I know that everyone knows that there's not going to be, like, Rhaenyra is not going to find peace. But rather than, like, even try to find peace or find a way to reach peace, he's like, okay, go kill her. Like, go kill her. Like, we need to take her out now. And again, if he kills Rhaenyra, that's going to kick off a broader war. Daemon is not going to just let his wife, who he, like, we can't deny it, he loves Rhaenyra. Like, I know that
weird as it is.
he is dedicated to her. Both of Rhaenyra's children are dragon riders. Both, like, her stepdaughters are dragon riders.
What I'll say to your point, because I think that this episode is probably the strongest evidence to this point that you've kept with through this rewatch.
Mm-hmm.
I feel this when we see Aegon resisting being king. Like you see where in Otto's mind, it's almost like, well, this is going to happen anyway. Like everything's going to snap into place and Aegon's going to take the throne and it's going to cause war. And it's like, no, not really. Like it takes some finagling, like more than a little bit on his part to like shore up the Greens, his side of this conflict he's predicting.
Yes.
So that's seen here, like him sending them out to kill Rhaenyra. That's seen in like his consistent like coldness throughout this episode, and it's seen when we see Aegon not even want to be king.
Yeah, exactly, and it's. I know I'm biased. I know I have the Otto hate, but it just rubs me the wrong way that he's like, it's inevitable. Like it's going to happen.
No, you're right. He's a villain. More so now than ever, I'd say.
Yeah. But that's the callback I wanted to do. But overall, great episode.
Yeah. One of the best.
One of the best.
That's Claire Kilner for you.
Yeah, her third and final for the season.
Yeah, but she'll be back on the next one. Don't you worry.
She will be. She will be. Austin, I have a question for you.
Uh-huh.
What was your number one fit for your pick?
Right, okay. So we did discuss, and I want the audience to be on the same page as us.
Yes.
We're doing our fit picks for the here, but to avoid stealing each other's thunder, we've decided we're going to do number one fit pick first and then the runner-up after.
I think it's what the people want.
And even up to this moment, I am hesitating in which one is going to be my pick and which one's going to be my runner-up.
Do you want me to go or?
Yeah, let's do it that way.
All right. Again, I picked this one very similar to last week. More like it's a great fit, but it also for what it stands for. Rhaenys in her armor when she's on top of Meleys.
Well, no,
Meleys. But like the dragon leather armor that's like all red, just like Meleys. She's got her hair all decked out. She just looks so badass. She looks like an Amazonian warrior about to ride off into battle. It's the biggest dragon energy. She looks incredible when she's up on top there. And
she does look great. I wish we got a full look at that fit.
yes. But that's my number one pick for the episode.
Okay.
But there were a lot of picks.
Yeah. There are options here. I honestly have three I could have, but we are trying to wrap up. I'm gonna give it to Aegon. His king get up there with the crown.
With
like
the crown.
once you get the crown and the black crown on the black fit with the black blade,
The ruby on the crown.
incredible. Just that dark king energy, or dark prince, I guess, more so.
Oh, he's king now.
Mm-hmm.
I'd be lying if I said I wasn't considering him as my runner-up, but my runner-up has to go to Alicent's coronation.
Yeah,
outfit.
which is so. I already did that one. Is the thing, because it's the same fit, but this is with the addition of the headpiece, which I
Yes.
think takes it to a whole other level.
Exactly. Like I was gonna pick that one. Like that was gonna be my runner-up when it came up the time before, but there was just too many to pick from, and it just looks too good. Like, but what was your runner-up?
I'm going rogue, Bryce.
Oh, let's hear it.
I'm going rogue, and I'm not even doing a runner-up. I'm doing an anti-fit pick. You ready for this?
I don't know if I am.
You could probably guess, but it's Kristen Cole in his streetwear. It's baggy and like ridiculous. The hat is all wrong. It might suit someone 3 times his age. Fabian, listen, such a beautiful man. What an injustice. What bullshit.
Like, it's just so unbelievable that they're trying to like blend in, and it's same with Erryk and Arryk. Like they're not blending in at all. Like,
Cole's the worst of it though. I mean I'm just jesting here, but also like keep Cole in a suit of armor. Please.
at the very least, like he can be in leathers if he's gonna go through the city. Just have him look like some sort of sellsword. He doesn't have to look like a king's guard.
Anyway, that's enough of that.
I had fun with that.
We got a dragon to talk about.
We have a dragon to talk
It's
about.
been a bit.
It's been a bit. I still will stick with that sea smoke is my favorite, but Meleys I'd at least give Meleys top 3.
Meleys is cool. I like the design. She's very spiky.
Very spiky and very stout. She's not particularly a long dragon, but I get the sense that because she's so compact, she's a lot stronger and a lot more. And she seems to be more muscular than a lot of other dragons. But especially if, I know Caraxes is like the other end where the neck is like 1.5 miles long, but
Yeah.
Meleys' neck is just like little stubby over here.
No. More of a weathered dragon, like a little older to match her rider.
I was
noticed.
getting vibes of the Hungarian horntail from Harry Potter.
Sure. Yeah. That hadn't occurred to me, but right on. Yeah. And I like how when she roars, because there's a great shot of that.
Yes.
The spikes like on the back of her skull or like the neck sort of frame the head. It kind of like frills. It looks badass.
It's, again, not to be making so many comparisons, but like the dinosaur in Jurassic Park.
The one that kills Wayne Knight. but cooler.
Yes.
So not horse, wolf or T-Rex. What do you think? Based on Sapochnik's
I have
quote.
to say wolf.
That's where I'm leaning.
Like, it's so hard to tell, but wolf is like, because I think we've agreed that Drogon and
Sea smoke.
Sea Smoke are T-Rex.
Yeah.
And it just doesn't match Drogon or Sea Smoke at all. And
I would say that Meleys of the dragons we've seen in the show, most resembles Caraxes.
except Caraxes is 1.5 miles
It's
long.
I'm just more talking, similar coloring.
Yeah, true.
But I'm more talking about the like head shape.
Oh, for sure. So it's Caraxes Jamie and Meleys Tyrion in this
Some fans have speculated that they actually are related.
Oh, really?
We don't have enough info,
No.
I think, to really dig in. They're similar ages. That's about all that we know. and similar appearances.
Are they similar ages?
Yes, I actually did confirm that, but we don't have their exact ages. Like I look up on the wiki and it says they were born sometime before this, but they have like the same.
I assume that
indication.
they're around the same ages as their writers. Like I assume that.
No, I think you can wrap up on the dragon, but I think that in the actual lore, Rhaenys is not her first writer.
Interesting. But that, for me, Rhaenys is the oldest child of that Targaryen line. And Viserys was the oldest son. And if Caraxes is Daemon's dragon, I assume Caraxes hatched for Daemon near when Daemon was born?
Okay, so I was busy looking up this. I didn't even listen to what you just said.
Okay.
But Meleys was originally written by Alyssa Targaryen,
Interesting.
who I don't know anything about, but that's what the wiki says.
Okay.
And it seems like she switched hands to Rhaenys after 13 years.
But was Caraxes originally Daemon's then?
I don't think so based on this, but let me get that.
Okay, because but that just doesn't make sense, because Daemon like almost has like doesn't respect people that don't have dragons.
Well, maybe they could just be playing with different continuity in the show.
Okay.
They very well could be. Also, yeah, in the Wiki of Ice and Fire lists Aemond, the Prince of Dragonstone, is the original writer of Caraxes.
Okay. Well,
Again, who I know nothing about. Sorry, I'm not. I'm
no,
Westeros
that's
nerd of a high enough level to just go off.
Our power levels are not high enough yet.
But, yeah, we're only fit to do a measly 2 hours and change on a single episode.
Oh no! All in all, great episode. All in all, and also on Meleys, I really enjoy her as a dragon. I think she's a really well-designed dragon. And to be honest, I'm really happy that they're deciding to give such a range of what the dragons look like.
That's my favorite shit in this whole show, man.
Rather than just doing what they did in Game of Thrones, where the dragons all were just different colors, which again, they could have done that. Like it wouldn't have been as exciting, but I love seeing how Caraxes is just this elongated eel-like dragon. I love seeing that Jace's dragon. I'm blanking on Jace's dragon's name, but has almost...
Does it start with a V?
Yeah, it starts with a V.
We'll get there, everybody.
Yeah, it doesn't matter. I love seeing Vhagar. Vhagar just being this hulking, like, half-dead dragon herself. Just like... But I just love the range of what types of dragons we're seeing and just showing that they're more than just a cookie cutter of what they're supposed to look like.
Vermax.
Vermax,
is what
that's
we're
right.
looking for.
Vermax.
We'll get a new printout made for season 2.
Well, because we're losing a few.
yeah, this is no longer as accurate as it once was. You got any prompts for our YouTube audience, Bryce? As we wrap up here, what do you want to know from the people? What do you want feedback on? We've already established who's Team Black, who's Team Green.
Yeah, that's true. That's true. You know,
do a wild card.
Do you think that Aemond should have let it slide? Should Aemond have let Aegon go on his way? Because again, I know that the obvious answer is yes, but Aemond is clearly also a loose cannon. He's not as put together.
Yeah, there's a discussion there. I want to know your Taco Bell order.
Yeah, well, Jersey Mike's. What is your go-to order at Jersey Mike's?
Is Jersey Mike's international?
I I don't know.
Jersey Mike's? I'll just do it later.
What
That's
is
it
your
for-
favorite buffalo chicken sandwich with bacon and buffalo sauce on it?
I think we broke it down.
I think we broke it down. Just comment below, share it, listen to the wizard.
Thank you so much for listening, everybody.
Yeah,
By the way,
means a lot.
It means a lot. We're almost there.
We're almost
wrapping
there.
up the first season. Holy cow!
And season 2 is just right around the corner.
Yeah. Well, we're gonna take a little break in the middle, but it'll be seamless for these fine people.
They won't even see it. They won't even. It'll be so seamless. They won't even know what's going on.
All right. Later, everybody.
Good night.
That's all for this week's Dragon Lore. Takes cold and hot, spread shore to shore. Enjoyed yourself? Please join the squad. Follow on social media at Big Liz Pod. And one quick reminder before you go, to rate, review, and share the show. Thank you for listening. It means a lot. See you next week, same time, same spot.